I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo, no matter how inclement, is that the word I'm looking for? Inclemental the weather, he does not take days off. Andrew Kuo, how are you post-Blizz?
I'm reporting live from the Smith restaurant in my Hoka snow boots, enjoying this wonderful blizzard? Snow, a few inches of snow in New York City. It is a beautiful scene, Ben. Where are you? Not at the Smith.
I'm not at the Smith. I'm at the Charles Smith.
Nice.
It's a place of deep, deep regret. Missing bunnies, getting your shot blocked, dreams dying on the spot. Also, complimentary fries.
Nice.
Are you shaming the people who dined outdoors during the Blizz?
No, I am one of the people. No, I think it's awesome, man. So in New York, we had, for New York, a bit of snow a couple days ago, maybe 2 days ago. And there was a photo that went kind of viral of people dining on, I believe it's 3rd Avenue. Yeah, is it 3rd Avenue?
Is it 3rd in the East Village or 3rd in like Midtown?
I believe it was East Village, right near New York Central, an old art supply shop. One of the best. Rest in peace. But it was a picture of a bunch of diners having some lovely refreshments in what seemed to be a heavy snow situation. It was actually really, really nice. But it looked like they were underneath 4 inches of snow, struggling to get their pancakes in their face. Did you see that photo?
I saw it, and the response was like, wow, New Yorkers are crazy. You know, that wasn't that crazy.
No, it's fun. It's like yeah.
These are your options.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you go to a place like France where they have tons of outdoor seating. When it's cold as shit, you still have people kind of outdoors under heat lights with blankets. Like, it's just kind of part of the deal.
Even when I was a wee lad, and my friends would say, call me, not on my cell phone, on a landline, and be like, yo, it's snowing out there. Why don't we go roll 3 huge snowballs, stack them on top of each other, and put a carrot for a nose? I'm like, that sounds stupid.
But only in New York.
Yeah. And if in my adult years, even in COVID 2020, if someone was like, yo, it's snowing, let's go get like a hot toddy, I'm like, that sounds kind of fun, man.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you had said, Dietrich, want to get a beer and watch the snow gracefully come down from outdoor seating, I probably would have said yes.
Yeah, man.
You mean an activity? Oh, I'm in. Now tell me what it is.
Put on your Hoka boots, put on your long underwear, your Cookies basketball sweatshirt, your Cookies basketball hat, sweatpants. New York City never dies.
Vintage Cookies play ball yellow Scully. I've been wearing that around.
Nice. And let's go get a hot toddy and look at this amazing snow fall on our wonderful city. Doesn't that sound awesome?
I want to do it now. Yeah, I thought the conceit that New Yorkers were crazy. There's like millions and millions of people here. The fact that a couple were willing to have some cocktails as the snow came down did not strike me as particularly A, unique to New York City, or B, that crazy. Again, I would have been in. If you said, let's meet at Clandestino for a snow-covered beer, I would have said,
that's fun.
Quo, I love the way you're thinking.
And I got caught in reading the comments of that post.
Never read the comments. Quo.
And it reverse shamed so fast, where someone obviously had the take of like, I thought we were supporting restaurants. Like, that seems fun, and someone's just like, oh, you're gonna reverse shame us? How dare you? This is about something else. And it's just like, the take-attitude is pretty awesome. And I was thinking, like, we've Sorkinized ourselves, man, and that is not a Star Trek. That's not Star Trek lingo. It's just like this bickering that we've just gotten so used to that I'm like, we're dragging the Smith here, right? Like, we're not dragging the people or the snow or New York. It's a restaurant that's called the Smith.
Okay, I'm into dragging the Smith, also known as the Charles Smith.
So what's up with the J.R. Smith erasure?
The Zaire Smith? They have been officially waived by shame culture.
Wow, they got peanutted. They're nuts for nuts, man.
But yeah, the Smith, if I think I know the place, is certainly one that I've never gone to.
It's some place where we don't go to. It gets like so reviews. It is like, I think the most influential restaurant in history is Balthazar. We've said this before. And the Smith is kind of like a facsimile of what Balthazar is, but for brunch, you know? So you go there for endless mimosas and to root for the Nets and to claim that KD looks fine.
I think the Smith falls into that category of restaurants that have popped up over the last 10 years that are kind of riding the decrepit wave of old-timey.
Decrepit wave of old-timey.
Yeah, they're not really going with like the...
Get Paul Millsap's name out of it.
It's the mainstreamization of
yes,
like taxidermied heads and
shout out to
pie
Freeman's
hats.
Alley. Yeah. Ooh. Trigger warning.
I knew that would get you.
I've been watching The Sopranos. I almost busted out oh,
hey, the gabagool. But the culture of like Brooklyn cliche early 2000s, the mainstreamization of that to be old timey, but not super old timey. Like the minimalism of the Ace Hotel, but not that precious. Enough to get people in there drinking bottomless cocktails and eating Eggs Benedict and guzzling Bloody Marys in a blizzard.
yeah. It's lazy because that food could be framed around any vibe. A sports bar, a new hip, like futuristic diner, an old-timey diner, but it has that Freeman's Alley kind of vibe. And
yes.
it's sort of like the Nets being like, what about Brooklyn? Basquiat. Here's another Russian player. I don't know.
I mean, it's Basquiat brunch, yes.
Yeah. And, you know, it could be worse, but, like, I have never eaten at the Smith. I heard, I walk by it all the time, and I with my peepers, I see people eating.
Do you see Bono Bros there?
Bono Bros, 4 days, man. And there are lots of French fries in, like, cone-shaped contraptions.
You know, it's easy to blame those spots and say that they're the worst places in the East Village. Like, they're a very easy target. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it would be unjustified to single them out for being terrible. A place like the 13th Step, for example. Like, just a frat culture bar in the East Village.
There's some intense zones out there.
Exactly. But I also think that's low-hanging fruit, if you will. So I don't even want to hate on places that are not trying to be something I would be interested in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. That's
like,
how I feel.
You're a frat bar. I get it. That's what you do. I can't be mad. Oh, that's the worst bar. Well, not really, because it's just not for me.
That's the feeling I have reading Obama's playlist. I'm like, please, nothing I like be on here. Cool, nothing I like is on here. And I think diversity takes like different forms all the time, and there should be a place for Bono Bros and people who enjoy fries in cone-like contraptions, and they're out there in the East Village. And I'd go if someone had a birthday party there, but they're not my spots. But my spots are not that cool anyway. They're just like a poodle.
Yeah, I'm not
ramen.
even exactly. I'm not even being like they aren't cool enough. I mean, they're just for a different audience.
Yeah.
And you know, writing about nightlife for years and years and years, I would go to a lot of places that were not specifically for me, and I had to try to look at it through the lens of the people who would want to go there. And sometimes you'd poke fun at them, but other times you're just trying to be honest. Are they providing the services that the crowd who would like it wants there? And I went to write up a Russian karaoke bar one time in Midtown. And I'm like, this is certainly not for me, like, obviously. But is it good for someone who wants a Russian karaoke bar in Midtown? Like, the different perspective.
And
No, I was going to say, everything shouldn't be the same. That's what we talk about with basketball. We don't really want there to be monoculture.
no monoculture takes. Yeah. They're not hot takes. They're just takes. And that's a cool thing about if there is like a tiny silver lining to a disaster like what we're going through. It's like if it snows and we've been quarantining for this long and things are stressful, would I go to the Smith to have a boozy tea? Absolutely. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going to be weird when this sort of indoor monoculture ends. Because in some ways, we all have been living exactly the same. In our house, there are people who have the means, of course, to go to the Catskills or go to Tulum or
The
kind of
Cookies
opt out.
Clubhouse in Montauk.
But generally speaking, we've all been indoors and shared an experience. And we remember this from seeing whether it was movie stars or NBA players like in their living rooms. When you'd cut to ESPN and everyone would clearly be on Zoom.
Not tubing it. Hopefully not tubing it.
Not tubing it. But we did get a monoculture. Okay, we're all into washing off our wine bottles. We're all into Alison Roman shallot pasta. Like there was a real monoculture that developed with COVID. Like the COVID culture.
Tiger King, right?
100%. That's right. What we were exposed to. How many people watched, the Greatest Grill Master documentary of all time? 10 episodes of grilling. Green eggs, tongs, Michael
Episode
Jordan.
2, the more perfect steak.
How many steaks? Can you want more steak? Can you take it more personally?
Can De La Soul release a sequel to Stakes is High called Stakes is High?
Is higher.
Yeah.
But to that point, we've got to get out of the monoculture eventually here. We can't just keep rolling with it.
That's the hope, right? If everything rolls in a straight line long enough, it's going to like fray a little bit, and there's like big and small theories there and ideas, but with quarantine you kind of see it in real time. It's like eventually someone's going to say Giannis Antetokounmpo is a bad defensive player. And like that is going to be an idea that bristles against a monoculture of him winning Defensive Player of the Year. And like,
hopefully someone is brave enough to tweet that kind of material.
Are you clutch enough to have that take? But it's just, I think it's just human nature, and it's a way people kind of figure out how to, what's the right idea? Not to live, but just to kind of flex. And I always look forward to those opportunities in music and art and stuff. Like especially in contemporary art and painting, I always joke, like, if there's a hit show at a museum, you kind of see artists try to figure out if they can like follow along the path of that hit artist. And then they kind of become themselves again and are grouchy about the same things. And it's always interesting to see whose museum shows are up and what younger artists are making around that. Same with music and stuff. But with quarantine, it's different because you throw in the idea of life and death, and it becomes different. And if you veer from the monoculture, you could be perceived as being disrespectful, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought one of my favorite pieces of writing that came out was by our friend Caitlin Phillips, who in Spike magazine wrote a sort of meandering, like little, I guess, vignettes, you could call it, about life during quarantine, life during the pandemic, being young and in downtown New York. And she was talking about house parties and people hanging out in the park. And I was like, that's great, because it actually shows that there was an alternative to the monoculture, that I'm not advocating for certain parts of that behavior, but it was a nice way of remembering that every single person that's out there is not in front of Twitter, and that the world is bigger than that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Everyone
For
here
sure.
is not like looking at the same photos from a telescopic lens of people in a park and arguing about it. I was like, oh, right, there's still people having house parties. Ooh, how illicit. But I enjoyed that piece of writing for exactly that reason. It was just like, oh, right, it's not all one thing.
Yeah, and the question I always come back to is, with everything, is like, what does someone actually care about? What does the BMM care about? What does CNN care about? What does the White House care about? And like, what do we care about when we talk about like shaming people dining in a restaurant in the snow? And sometimes it's small, like I care about a joke, I care about getting a shot off, but then sometimes it's a little bigger. And I don't know. I definitely feel like we're in a place in New York where it's like we're sliding into like what I consider to be like deep-seated grouchiness because we've been at this for so long, and the nuanced takes are kind of just like going by the wayside a little bit. We kind of turn into simpler versions of like our projections, right?
Yeah, and also, we've done our little New York City vibe check for
Always.
months and months and months on end on the same topic. And I think last week or last episode, I said, I don't really know what's going on. I've lost the thread on the numbers. So I went and looked at them, on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. And if you look at places in Brooklyn, you look at places in Lower Manhattan, it isn't actually much different from the summer, right? You look at Greenpoint, there were 37 total cases of COVID over the last week or so. And you look at Soho, it was like 35 cases. Of course, there's far more in other neighborhoods in Brooklyn. There's far more in other areas like Staten Island, parts of Queens, like where people are vulnerable to this. And the same communities that were vulnerable to this from day one, real Corona day ones. It's almost the same idea. Like New York City is shutting down restaurants, no eating inside. The blizzard's here, no eating outside. We might close down these things. And you're like, even within the ecosystem of New York, where it kind of has to be a monoculture in the way that you approach COVID, it's still super different, even like a mile apart from each other.
That's wild.
Like completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about like the way soccer teams in London are divided up by like kind of neighborhoods. Like Soho has a team, the Lower East Side has a team, Brooklyn, Greenpoint have their own team, and we kind of see how New York City kind of lives, right? And it's less movement than I always think. Like I was joking, like I wanted to meet one of my friends who's been in New York City since the 90s. Maybe 3 years ago, I was like, meet me in Chelsea. I'm in Chelsea. He's like, I've never been to Chelsea. It's like, say that again. It's just like, I've never been out there. How do I get out there? I'm like, holy shit, I love that idea. He's a Lower East Side rat. He goes from his apartment in the East Village to his work in the Lower East Side every day for the last 2 decades.
There was a period in the early 2000s, and I think some people still cling to it a bit, but that idea of like, I don't go to Brooklyn. Like, Brooklyn, no way. Get out of here. Impossible. And that's obviously changed for many, many reasons. But there is a romanticism to that kind of extreme colloquialism. Like, I kind of respect it.
I get that rap quite a bit. I get the rap from my friends for the last 2 decades being like, what are you doing in Brooklyn? And I'm like, I don't know. I took a train over here to meet you. That's what I'm doing here. And my studio's in Brooklyn. I go as much as I can. But I am a Manhattan dude for the time being, just because it's a pain in the tuchus to get out there sometimes. Sometimes if to get to you in Greenpoint from where I am might take 45 minutes.
My biggest gripe about Brooklyn is that it's just not as good for walking as Manhattan.
1,000%.
The density of Manhattan, where you can change neighborhoods so quickly, so many options for food, for art. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn, it's a little small townish. Mm-hmm. You run out of real estate to walk. You run out of stuff to see. You run out of restaurants.
It's residential. It is a lot of people living, obviously not in the middle of Williamsburg or anything, but even in Greenpoint, one of my favorite neighborhoods in New York, it is people live there with families, and it's like when you walk around, I like to, before the coronavirus, I used to just like leaving my apartment and then seeing what happens. You know, like at some point I'll get something to eat. At some point I'll make a decision of like what to do about something, and there were so many options. Good thing we're all getting $600 and we'll snap back as soon as this is over.
I'm spending all of mine on Cookies merch.
Wow, that could get you a couple sweatshirts, maybe some sweatpants. Wow, a king's ransom.
I'm going to sign up for the $50 for the entire year on Patreon. What a bargain.
That is a bargain.
Do you go to the galleries like MoMA or whichever ones are open right now, like the Whitney, during COVID? Because people who have done it say it's an incredible, rare experience, and I have actually not done it.
I have not, because, as you know, I'm playing it pretty safe. The few times I have done things like that, it's to like a dear friend's opening or like one of my buddies' like debut of his own gallery space. Shout out to Broadway Gallery on Broadway in New York City. But I have not been able to do that, or I've chosen not to do that. But I kind of call bullshit on it, because if you just go to the Met on a Tuesday morning, it's pretty fucking empty. I mean, don't go on a Saturday afternoon. You won't be able to see that armor, those armored shorts, and with those.
That's what I want.
Those wallabies. Yeah, I know, those Knicks armored shorts that everyone's clamoring to see. They say the logo follows you throughout the room. But I mean, if you go on an off day on a sleepy time of year, like, the Met is pretty empty.
I mean, I do like this idea though. But yeah, when I've gone to like Met Brewer, it's been really empty on an off time for sure.
Yeah. Do you like museums empty? That's the question.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's different. I kind of like a little buzz.
I think a little buzz is nice, but it's cool when it's the buzz of an opening versus the buzz of like a jammed, like, I don't know. I have no problem with a crowded gallery unless it's, when I'm huddling around vainly trying to get a glimpse of the Mona Lisa.
To that shiny Knicks logo.
Just trying to elbow my way closer to that elusive smile and wonder what she's grinning at.
There was a vibe. Someone wrote an article about there being a lack of benches in galleries because it was impossible to live with a piece of art while like you've been walking around all day and your feet are tired and you're not like 21 years old and you want to see a beautiful work of art, but you have to stand there. It's like, how come people got rid of benches? And it was such an interesting idea to me because I see the merits of that for sure. I'm also just like, take a photo. I'm not an experiential guy. Like, I don't really care about traveling, even though I've been lucky to do it in my life. So like, I covet museums, but I don't covet the space to like have that experience by myself.
I really like being in a gallery space, having a bench, really spending some time staring at that painting, then having a couple detectives come in and questioning me about perhaps my daughter's involvement in the murder of an adulterous Latina.
Are you the Hayward household, expecting this line of questioning every day?
Look, I'm a Reardon day one. I like slowly turning my eyes to the officers away from a glorious work of art that I've been staring at. And I wonder if that work of art would perhaps provide some secrets about this murder mystery that's unfurling.
Some clues, as if something would happen in 5 hours.
But alas, we never get to see what those works of art are.
Yeah, it's just like dropping David Hockney references, but he wasn't the murderer either. Great.
It was his busy friend.
Imaginary busy friend.
So speaking of the culture, there's a British sitcom coming out called Pandemonium, and it's a comedy about COVID and the COVID era. People are asking, Quo, is it too soon? Is it too soon for COVID jokes?
I don't think anything is too soon ever. Like, I like going to memorials after heartbreaking deaths and have someone there crack a joke, like even at someone's expense. Obviously not rude or like hurtful. I covet jokes maybe over any other kind of storytelling. So it's never too soon for anything because it's our way of dealing with it.
I do remember while the ruins of the Twin Towers were still smoldering, you did a little improv set down there at Ground Zero.
I got a little amplifier and I set up near Ground Zero with my mask on, and I busted a couple jokes, man. I had some zingers, man.
What's up with Muhammad Atta?
Hey, downtown gets no respect. No respect, I tell you. What's the deal with airplanes?
Whoa, no, don't do it.
Don't do it to them. Like, my favorite rapping is funny, even though some serious rap songs have jokes in them. I think that's the best way. I think the best movies have a little digs in there somewhere. I don't think being serious works the whole time, all the time. And you need serious things like the Smith, and then you need non-serious things like the Smith in Snow.
You know, when COVID spread across our land as a great plague, it was jokes all fucking day. All we did was make jokes.
Yeah.
And it was abject horror, of course,
Yeah.
but it was accompanied by just jokes over and over and over, whether it was memes or tweets. I mean, incessantly jokes. I'm not sure how COVID will correspond to being replicated in mass media after it's over, though. And it's weird because, you know, Wuhan, for example, at least according to what they're saying, no COVID since May.
Oh, they're back.
Like May.
Yeah.
June, July, August, September, October, November, December. They're 7 months free of COVID. 7 fucking months.
Yeah. And they had practice with other scares like SARS, and they have a culture of wearing masks. But they also, you know, they have a culture of falling in line. And and people are making jokes after seeing them partying. And there's a tinge of racism there for sure. But, you know, to go back to, like, I think it's okay if people write shows about COVID now, or bust jokes about 9/11 during 9/11, or someone's death a week after they die, because I think it is an expression of fear. And if I saw on Netflix that a show about a comedy about COVID was able to stream, I'd be like, this is going to be super sad. And it's going to end up being kind of closer to great than like a documentary about everything that went wrong. Because laughing through something, I think, is acknowledging in the room that everyone's terrified.
I'm thinking about how the Vietnam War became the most popular subject for movies, basically.
Oh my God, that era was wild. Yeah, everything.
Everything, that era.
Yeah.
And it would not surprise me if this era has that kind of echo effect down the line, that 30 years from now, they're still doing COVID era, where it's like BLM, COVID, Trump, militias assembling at the Michigan governmental palace with AR-10s, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. But you look around at the mass tumult. I think we're going to see this stuff again down the line in a more pop cultural perspective, at least. But I'm not looking forward to like COVID romance, a COVID drama. I don't want to see it. Yeah. At least give us a couple decades, like 15 years before we have to watch. Like, oh yeah, it's a rom-com over Zoom. No, I don't want that.
A really annoying thing is happening around the Crown, where the royal family is like, all of this is not true, guys. Remember, this is fiction, and the people making it were like, yeah, but no, but yeah, obviously, like. We weren't there, so it's all based off of true story. And I think people are pushing for Netflix to rate the validity of some of their storytelling. I'm like, yo, no bear went to Tony Soprano's house. The bear doesn't exist. It's Tony Soprano as an allegory. But also, Tony Soprano doesn't exist, and it's like we get into fraught territory there. So there will be like, this is a movie about a militia showing up to kidnap a politician. But then I hope we get better stories than just zombies, because there's going to be so many zombie movies, right? I hope we get a kind of allegory that is like funny and clever, and we will. I think we will. I think I'm more with David Fincher than Christopher Nolan. I love the streaming aspect of everything because we get different kinds of stories, even though Mank had way too many hats, buddy. But I enjoy the space for David Fincher to make Mank.
I don't have a problem with mining any particular era, but I am with you on a distaste for retro hats.
Oh yeah, who isn't?
You watched whatever that HBO show was that had so many hats. I couldn't bear it.
Are you talking about the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel 2? More Marvelous Mrs. Maisels?
It had hats. That's all I know. I tried watching the David Simon one that was based on The Plot Against America, the Philip Roth novel. Too many hats.
That was tough. Man.
Too many beiges, browns, hats. Yeah. Not my deal.
And I think I felt bad after my tirade last episode about hats, pork pie hats, because superheroes and capes don't bother me at all. Like, I think the Wonder Woman 1984 trailer is amazing looking, but I can understand why someone's like, that's for kids, right? To which I say, get your own podcast about basketball.
I mean, you know me. I'm out on I'm out on monster movies.
I know. Or superhero movies or monster movies. You're not a Godzilla dude? Talk about an allegory. That's a great one.
I don't mind a horror movie every now and then. I'm just not into like the franchising element of them churning out these big budget movies about every character over and over and over. Like, how many Batman movies do we need?
Not enough, baby.
Avengers movies.
Listen, in order, is this Kobe Bryant erasure? Are you erasing Robins everywhere? See, without Batman movies, you have no Robins.
There's no Alfred, like a Tatum-esque character.
Right. This is not Alfred erasure. I hear you, though, because it's silly. And if you didn't grow up reading these comic books, they're extra silly. And it takes something like, I don't know, a popular one was like a Thor Ragnarok one because it had jokes in it. But like, they're kind of nerdy inside jokes that don't really hit the same.
Would you say they hit different?
They hit different. It's not for everybody, and it sucks that it dominates, but that's why I'm into the whole Fincher thing, being like, I don't have to make superhero movies anymore because of Netflix.
I agree with the critiques that like Scorsese had when he said, look, they're not for me. They shouldn't be every single kind of movie. I'm with that. And I'm not even approaching it from an artsy standpoint where I only watch Criterion movies or read books. Yeah. like, be serious.
With your pork pie hat on. Oh, I'm going to read this printed word.
I just do find that they are, in general, made for toddlers. I've seen a few that were pretty good, like the Wolverine one
Oh, come on. You're going to pick that one out of all
What was
of
that one
them?
called again? Logan? That was pretty good.
Oh, what about the Christopher Nolan Batmans? 1, 2,
Those were
and
good.
3.
Those were good. I think there are exceptions. I'm not putting them all into the same golden lasso.
The most childish ones are good too. Like the Spider-Man animated multiverse one was kind of fun. I think some people had seizures because it was too psychedelic. It was a damn rave. I was on ketamine watching that shit.
I'm not into that, and I'm not into I'm not into the whole like monoculture of games of the Games of the Throne.
Oh, you hate dragons, right? Now it's all rushing back to me, like the memory of a pork pie hat.
But someone, who was it? I can't remember who was talking about the Game of Thrones, but it was like that was the unifying monoculture like of this era. I'm like, really? It was Game of Thrones?
you
Like
watch
all I remember is that they would always say, "Autumn is coming," over and over.
Yes, that was
Autumn is
annoying.
coming. Autumn is on the way. The fall is on the arrival. The leaves are coming down. We'll eat pumpkin pie.
There was a line in that British show, Peep Show, where he was just like, "Oh, I want a Game of Thrones." She's like, "You can watch your dragon tits." I always think about that. It's so fucking hilarious. Did you watch The Watchmen?
Yeah, that was good though.
Yeah, so like I love all the superhero stuff because like, zombies is about capitalism, and I put everything in compartments, and I think the idea of puberty and superheroes is like always interesting to me. And The Watchmen like had Lube Man. It was like super funny, I thought. And people
I'm not
like,
anti-magical realism,
yeah,
which I put that under the category of
yeah.
just I'm kind of into this idea of, hey, what if Vietnam was a state? I'm like, cool, makes sense to me. Like an alternate timeline. Oh, squid was dropped on New York City. Sure, I can accept that. I'm open-minded.
Yeah.
But as long as it's done through the context of this is still for adults, this is still smart and funny and grim and well done, that it's not designed for a 14-year-old.
It's such a fine line, right? Because you said the S word. I bristle at smart entertainment. I'm not mad at smart entertainment. I'm mad at smart entertainment. Do you know what I mean? I don't like clever, like, do you get it? Do you get it? I think something can be really simple and smart, but it's
For
tough.
sure.
It's tough for me to see something that is trying. Do you know what I mean?
Clearly, I don't mind things that are kind of dumb as
Oh, dumb is the best.
as the most influential Undoing pod that I hosted with you over 6 incredible weeks in which the mysteries of Uptown Manhattan were revealed one by one.
It's a show about nothing.
Much like a sculpture hammer unveiled from a violin case. So
Hugh Grant
I've
is-
been looking for another hit. I want another hit of that womanly murder mystery.
Okay, so are you looking for a hit? Are you looking for a community to talk to about something in real time with?
It's a little bit of both, and maybe I'm just looking at all the wrong places. I
Where
tried watching I'm Your Woman. I'm like, this. Let's follow
Too many
the.
hats.
Let's follow this. Let's go this. There's another woman involved. There's apparently some death involved, some crime. This could work. This could be a thing. It's a movie on Amazon. It's not actually a series. Wow. That sucked.
It's hard, man. I think nothing has hit the same, hit different as the Undying. Which it was kind of like the highlight of quarantine television to me, because it had all the delicious parts in it, like Hugh Grant, and that's about it, and nothing happening.
As the co-host of a basketball podcast, I would agree that the was the highlight of serialized television and not The Last Dance. I will firmly agree with you.
Oh,
my
it's
favorite thing to watch was the
The Undoing is LeBron James, and way back, maybe you rank number like 30 is Jason Tatum. I mean Tiger King, The Last Dance, whatever. It's just like you have the Undoing, and then everything else.
What I liked about was how smart it was.
You thought it was going to be about something, but it was about nothing.
So I'm Your Woman Terrible. Did not like it. It should have starred Amy Adams.
Everything should have starred Amy Adams. Did you watch Hillbilly Eulogy though? Elegy, my bad. I just figured out the difference between eulogy and elegy. Don't make me explain it.
But they're not that different.
Yeah, it's true. Did you watch the Hillbilly Elegy?
No, I heard it was unintentionally hilarious.
Huh. You know I love that, but I didn't get that. I thought it was very actory. It felt like a lot of people trying to do accents, and it just threw me off.
Not into that. I'm Your Woman was my least favorite kind of movie, which are ones that use long breaks in dialogue, incredibly lengthy moments of silence in order to instill gravitas in otherwise mundane bullshit.
Right.
Driver did that to me. I could not stand that movie for that exact reason. People pausing 30 seconds and saying,
Wait, Driver or Drive?
Drive.
That was an awesome movie.
Yeah,
Drive? You mean Gosling? Dog? Yeah, that was a good movie, man. But
I can't stand that like pseudo meaningfulness that is
that
just
director
based
does
on long periods of silence and minimal dialogue. I think it's cheap.
I hear you. So, yeah, I walk the fine line between loving shows about nothing and shows about nothing trying to convince us that nothing is content. I'm like, just because you have no ending doesn't make it clever. You just didn't have an ending, you know?
Couldn't imagine, say, a 90-minute program with nothing to say.
Nah.
Coming out week after week after week.
Well, it begs the question, not to get serious. Can I get serious?
Yes.
Is this a Russian hack? Did Russia hack Netflix? Are we getting subpar programming because of a damn cyber attack?
I'm not convinced it's the Russians.
I know. Okay, go off. Why?
I just think we need power rankings.
Oh, okay. A big board of global threats, global cyber threats.
Let's get some
Hack the world.
suspects on the
Let's go.
board. Look, I need a new and
Not with Russia. I'm not on Russia's watch.
This hack of solar winds and the Department of Energy. Like, I need some suspects. You can just it's the Russians. Like, is it? Is it the Russians? And maybe at the end it'll turn out that it was indeed the Russians. But give me some options. Let's sleuth around. My big board includes the Chinese and obvious suspect.
Racist. Come on, man.
One might call it a red herring.
Good choice of color there, asshole. Go off.
Israelis cannot be discounted here.
Fair.
A rich history of spying on the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm. Are the Swedes involved? The Swiss?
I would like a dark horse. The Swedes would be a dark horse. Like, what are they doing? Yeah, it turned out it was Mexico.
Is it the imaginary country? The busy country? This country is awfully busy.
Well, it would be America's alter ego. Maybe it was another government agency within the U.S. That I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with. I don't know who the busy friend is in this.
Is it Texas? Are you claiming it's is it the relegated league?
Yeah, it's the relegated state of Texas, the nation of Texas, getting in our Department of Energy for nuclear secrets in order to further their gasoline dreams.
How long has Texas been threatening to secede? Are we talking like 50 years at this point? 60, 70?
I feel like it was like the moment they became part of the union. They're like, we're out.
Yeah.
Sam Houston's not taking it.
Yo, our state is huge. We should get out.
Like, well, should we just go back to being part of Mexico? Like, no, but okay, fine. We'll be in the U.S. for now, but we're going to keep threatening. And we're going to talk about remembering the Alamo left and right.
Yeah.
We're going to let Popovich run a team.
We're going to get James Harden all those birria tacos.
He has birria strength these days.
He sure does.
Yeah, my power rankings right now are Russians, Chinese, Israelis. I think you got to throw North Korea in the mix. They got into the movie studios. They could do this.
Do they have the technological prowess of a 400-pound multi-pound hacker in the basement of his mom's house.
Okay, all right. So the Texans are fourth.
The Texans, right? The country of Texas.
North Korea or Iran? Where do you want to go with this?
What if it's Air Canada? What if it's Vince Carter with his gamer headset on hacking from Toronto?
I like it. We
Yeah,
needed
checks out.
like an alternate character. I'm into it. Anyway, the hack, apparently they didn't get the good stuff right.
It's hard to tell what the good stuff is, but the really good stuff is allegedly has not been hacked, which
It
is a
would
relief.
suck if someone hacked in and nuclear bombed America from America. I would be so annoyed.
Have you watched I forget
War games?
similar Terminator 6 or 7, I forget which one, where like everyone nuked each other at the end. No spoilers. The Claire Danes one.
Yeah, that definitely hits different.
Yeah. The fear of nuclear fallout is a distinct fear my parents had, and it was palpable. They were just like, yo, the nuclear bomb was kind of like weaponized in our generation, and it freaked us the fuck out. And you guys don't really seem to have that fear, and we don't have the same fear, right?
Have you ever seen the BBC film? It aired on television. It was not in theaters or anything like that, but it's called Threads.
No, but it's not about Ben Simmons being traded to Houston.
Like new threads, new unis.
Nice.
It is a horrifying movie that is about nuclear fallout. It's about an attack, might be by the Russians, suspects in this hacking, but it's about a nuclear attack on, I want to say Manchester, and it's about what happens afterwards. It is
Talking about the Smiths.
an absolutely horrific watch. Horrific. You will never forget it.
I hate it already. Is it funny? Are there jokes? Is Ricky Gervais in it?
No, it is.
I don't like it.
It is so grim and so dark. If you want to really get yourself in a terrible mood, because I know everyone's too happy these days. Like everyone's just bouncing off the walls with ebullience. If you really want a downer,
So stimulus checks. Yeah.
you can watch Threads. I think you can find it streaming online somewhere for free.
Cool.
It's
I
just
won't watch
sitting
that.
around.
Thanks.
That movie is foul.
Yeah. I think, I've been pushing
Highly
this.
recommended for one-time viewing.
I've been pushing this forever. I think every dramatic movie should be remade as a comedy. So if it was Threads 2, more Threads, but funny, I'm down.
Well, speaking of regurgitated topics, Harden Simmons still on the news. Jesus Christ.
Listen. Sometimes when the world isn't magically delicious, you need to go find your own pot of gold.
I'm so sick of hearing about this.
It feels a little bit like Groundhog's Day. And I love Twitter. I love NBA Twitter so much. It has saved me during quarantine. I'm a little stat hog. Those little nuggets, those delicious mushrooms on my Twitter feed. But to have to sit through more people saying like Ben Simmons can't shoot in the clutch it feels like my head is getting pounded with a sculpting hammer.
Like a adulterous Latina.
Adulterous Latino son, you mean?
Good suspect.
Not yo. He's awfully innocent seeming,
Yeah.
sort of like Canada.
Yeah, he, quote, discovered the body. Interesting that he did that instead of going to school.
Oh, he's just sad that his mom was brutally murdered.
Interesting. So, yeah, the Ben Simmons for James Harden trade talks. Just, when I say trade talks, I mean the discussions about this concept.
I love it.
They
Yeah.
reached yet another
Fuck
fever
it. Let's
pitch
go.
last night when it was reported by Shams and Woj, both, that Simmons was maybe sort of included in some packages for James Harden that potentially were discussed and had indicated that potentially it was a maze of convoluted information. But it was a real Rorschach test for what you wanted to happen. So you had people saying, here it is. It's all happening. Ben Simmons is being traded for James Harden right now. All they're doing is ironing out whether they're going to include more picks or not. And it's done. This is a done deal.
Translate, it's like Philly even knows Ben Simmons is bad. I knew it. Now they know it. That's
Exactly. It was just confirmation bias no matter what you thought. Or you would say, oh, this is all just misinformation. This is the Houston Rockets, who cannot get Ben Simmons in a trade, are trying to put that out to drum up interest in a James Harden trade from other teams. That, well, if we could get Ben Simmons, imagine what we could get from you. Well, you'll have to up that ante because Simmons is on the table. However you thought about the situation going into it completely informed how you read the events of last night. Morey came out and said, we're not trading Ben Simmons. He's an important part of our future. To which people would say, total horseshit. He's already said this before. What else would he say?
Yeah.
There was nothing gained from any of the conversations yet again.
Listen, there's a possibility. It's been reported by sources, unnamed sources, that I could maybe go out in public with a pork pie hat. It could. Sources say it's possible.
There was a suggestion of an implication that Quo could potentially, in some packages, wear a fez.
Listen, at one point he wore armored Knick shorts to the bar. So, like, he says he's not going to wear a pork pie hat. So who are we to believe?
On the other hand, I'm just content with trusting Daryl Morey as a Sixers fan. Hey, whatever Morey thinks, he could be right, he could be wrong, but he'll make the decision on a intelligent basis. I think that's all you can ask from a front office.
Yeah, I mean, chasing hypocrisy is endless, and we found this out with our politics recently. And everybody changes their mind. It is the way humans go. So when Daryl Morey says, yeah, I want to spend time with my family because I don't want to tell you guys that I wasn't happy. So this is me code saying I'm leaving the job, but it's no one's fault. It's not an egg casserole's fault. It's not James Harden's fault. I'm leaving because family, yeah, fuck with that. You know, like, come at my family if you want. And then when he takes a job in Philly, everyone's like, but you said you were going to spend time with your family. And he's like, I don't know what you guys believe or where hypocrisy begins or ends, but obviously he's taking phone calls. And if he indeed trades Ben Simmons after saying he doesn't, then he has a very good reason to do so. His obligation is to engage with the media and then do his job. So I think clutching pearls about what he has and hasn't done and what he's saying and hasn't said is the fun of it, right?
Yes, and it's just ways to reinforce the arguments that you've already had, whatever your position is. And when you look at the people who want Harden to be traded for Ben Simmons, they're not people who love Ben Simmons. Like, this all falls into the exact existing party lines.
And the opposite is us, who love Ben Simmons and are like, fuck this.
And we're like, well, this trade doesn't make sense for these reasons. The whole thing just, like, you know what actually bothers me a little bit about the idea of trading Ben Simmons is that the people who wildly underrate how good he is, and in my mind have treated him like shit, which has led to me defending him a lot, will kind of win despite the fact that he'd be traded for James Harden, a perennial MVP candidate. So, like, in this situation, they're proven completely wrong, but they get to say, ship his ass out, even though he was traded for an MVP candidate.
Well, like
that's how valuable he is.
Yeah.
Well, that the Sixers at this point are refusing to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden, but it would be viewed as a win for the point of view that Simmons really isn't that great, and he needs to shoot corner threes, and he needs to want it more, and he's actually wants to play in LA, and he's a frigid little ice queen.
He wants to go back to Aussie and hang with the Kangaroos. And Nicole Kidman from The Undoing, who knows what subjective bias is and confirmation bias.
Have you heard of psychology? Yes. But have you heard about reverse psychology?
The Ben Simmons, I think Ben Simmons is one of my favorite things to think about in the NBA because it brings up your kind of point of view with basketball immediately, right? It's a good litmus test, and I think it's fun that everyone disagrees about him. I think that's the joy of it. And when it sounds like 2019 is like some Game of Thrones stuff, talking about like how he's too scared to shoot and he's a coward, and people calling for him to get traded, and I'm like, well, then who do you want for him? And they're like, okay, Giannis, James Harden, and it was just these top 10 players. I'm like, so you're saying his value is top 10, but you think he's trash, And I think we're Sixers fans are doing something that I can appreciate, which is they're articulating their frustration in something that's like easy to describe, and it's in a container that nerds. We've talked about this endlessly. Nerds have taught all of us to value valuable shots in the last post Curry. Now that we're convinced that 3-pointers are valuable, all of a sudden we have a valuable player who doesn't shoot threes. How could this be? And it's an easy way to talk about an inconsistency in an evolutionary kind of thought.
Well, it's the shifting of the Overton window, where 10 years ago, no one would have said a thing about him not shooting. Like, people may have cracked jokes that he doesn't shoot, but it would not have been viewed as this huge flaw in him as a player. But we've reached a point with conventional wisdom that everyone's got to shoot threes. Oh, you saw Bam? He's working on corner threes. He's going to be a problem. Who cares, man?
Yeah.
But the conventional wisdom is that players need to shoot threes because the three is really valuable. And we're already seeing how teams like the Bucks and teams like the Raptors are exploiting that idea.
Oh yeah,
and had the two best defenses in the NBA last season, and
gave
up the most threes in history.
Yeah, let it fly.
Because they want guys who aren't great at taking threes. Mm-hmm.
And they're guarding the good ones, but yeah, they're letting the other ones hang out. They're letting Frank, unfortunately, sad for Frank, they're letting Frank bomb.
I mean, without even getting too specific, basketball remains the same. Shots are only good depending on who's taking them. That applies to going and playing at the rec center. Some guys you let shoot threes, some guys you don't. Some guys you're fine with them taking a 12-footer. Some guys you're not. You want a little guy to post up? Cool, go for it. The sport fundamentally stays the same in these regards, but people's perception of it is so skewed by trends. Nah, man. Shots depend on who's taking them.
And and the amazing and the best thing about sports is there's an empirical aspect to it. But in the way people talk about Simmons, it's almost like they don't like that actor, or they don't like the color, the sepia tone of Mank, or like a black and white movie. The hats. It's a pork pie. I love ski hats. Ski hats are fine. Those are hats. Caps, baseball caps are not hats. I can tolerate a ski cap, even a saggy beanie, whatever. But pork pies, I just can't. I can't stomach it. And when people talk about Simmons, it's with this specific point of view, being like, I don't aesthetically enjoy the way he does it, because empirically, if you take a broader view, he's one of the most efficient, best scorers in the NBA. And to say that he's not a clutch time player, I'm like, I've seen games where he wins games with a steal to a dunk, and we don't value them because of Jordan bias, dribble bias. It has to be a long range 2 or a 3 to win it in order to be classified as a game winner.
Yeah, and without getting too much into a Sixers conversation, there is a perception that they need a better perimeter player to pair with Joel Embiid, someone who can make plays down the stretch that falls under the banner of Jordan originalism. You have Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
He is literally the best crunch time scorer in the NBA last season. Literally.
Is he? The numbers are good?
Yeah. He had a true shooting percentage of 70% in clutch situations.
Pretty good.
And led the NBA in scoring in fourth quarters and in clutch.
But he cried. He cried, Ben.
Fourth quarters he was in the top 5, and clutch he was number 1. He was the best clutch time scorer in the NBA by a lot last season. Why would you take the ball out of his hands? Only because we have this idea of Jamal Crawford pulling up and taking a fall away 15-footer, and we all watch the ball hovering in the air. Time expires. Ooh, just missed.
But I've seen him make it before, so it was a good shot.
Like, you have an elite half-court scorer. That's cool. That's cool. You have that taken care of. It's weird that people say Joel Embiid is the foundational player on this franchise. You could never, ever trade him. And then you say, well, we certainly can't give him the ball. Like, so then, is he great or not?
Yeah.
Like, my thing about Simmons and Embiid has been pretty much the same for 2 years. It's that these guys are chronically underrated by their own fans. And that's what is sad. Whether it's the BMM poisoning people's brains or just the fact that they both fall outside of Jordan originalism. One is a 7-footer, one doesn't shoot. These guys, even by the people who watch them the most, the people who are Sixers loyalists, shit on them all the time. Embiid's not conditioned. Simmons is scared. He has psychological problems. Like, these dudes are so good. They're so good. There are like 10 to 15 players on the planet that you can build around to potentially win a championship. Maybe there's 10. Philly has 2 of them.
Yeah.
There's 2. They're 26, they're 24. You have 2 of them. When Morey talks about how rare and how special that is, it's not lip service. They are that good. You know, the Celtics, you know how many they have? They have 0. They have 0. Philly has 2 of the 3 best players in the Eastern Conference, with all due respect to Durant, who may come back and be fantastic. But if that's the case, then Philly has 2 of the top 4. That's fucking crazy. That's crazy.
Woj is reporting now through sources, maybe from Bristol, maybe writers from Boston, that the Bucks are willing to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo, who they just signed, to the West Coast for Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, that makes sense.
I just think people don't really get how rare and how good these guys are, because they don't fall under the typical parameters of what you view a star looking like. People can see Jamal Murray. People see Devin Booker and like, wow, these guys are so good. They're not even close. They're not even close. You can't put them on a team and just have it be good. You put Simmons on a team, 50 wins. Embiid on that team, 50 wins, 52. Like, you pencil in a good team with either of them. Devin Booker, good player. Jason Tatum, good player. Ingram, good player. They don't have that impact. There are 10 dudes in the NBA, and Philly has 2 of them.
So I think, like, the interesting thing is, you know, we joke about the BMM, but it is a concerted effort by certain writers to get good players out of the East. And I think, you know, we just saw Giannis sign for a Supermax, I believe.
So he signed for 5 years, $225 billion. No, that million. And he has an opt-out in the 5th season. So it's a 5-year deal on paper, but we can probably say it's a 4-year deal.
Yeah, and he is a beige person off the court. No, I love him on the court. But, like, he did this because, you know, I saw an interview with him last night, and he's like, well, I knew I wanted to stay, and I didn't want distractions, so that's why I did it. As a business move, I thought that was really dumb because it takes options out of his hands needlessly. But as someone who just cares about playing basketball, I understand it. He doesn't want to deal with that question because he's into making jokes and having a kid and playing basketball. Like, he just wants to concentrate on other things. Not gaming, as far as we know yet. But just wait for him to lose and not get a championship this year, because it's very hard to win a championship, and certain writers to be like, is Giannis soft? Like, does he need to change locations? Maybe Milwaukee's too small of a spotlight. He needs to go to the Lakers or the Warriors, but not the
Giannis's refusal to go to a big market indicates cowardice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like Giannis as a person.
I want to hang with him.
He seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
Seems like a great guy. And I would be inconsistent if I said, well, he should do something other than what he wants. If Giannis wants to spend his career in Milwaukee as the greatest Buck ever, and the next 5 years there in pursuit of bringing a title to Milwaukee,
shout out to Big Dog.
Like, I can't say, no, don't do that. You know, the same way I think every player should do what they want. But at the same time, I don't always like it. I didn't like Kevin Durant joining the Golden State Warriors. I think he has every right to do it. Like, sure, go do your thing.
Oh yeah, we're fans. We can like and dislike stuff.
But I didn't like that move on his part. I didn't like Giannis re-signing with the Bucks when he did.
Did you hate
I thought it was boring.
Did you hate the Talents to South Beach move?
I wanted him to come to New York. I wanted LeBron to play here. So I didn't love it in terms of him like going to Miami with like his crew, but I certainly supported it. I liked that Heat team. They were awesome. I was one of the few people actively rooting for them. I mean, you were too, but like I loved the Heatles. They were the shit.
Awesome villains. Awesome team.
Yeah, no, I loved him. I had no problem with the decision itself, other than that wanting him to go somewhere else. But I don't like Giannis staying there because I think it's dull. And that's kind of my problem with Giannis as a superstar, is that it's hard to separate who he is and the things that he likes and his values from the public pressure to do those things. I don't know where one ends and one begins. Like Giannis going out there and hucking up threes and airballing them in games. I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Stop doing that shit. You're too good. You're a back-to-back MVP. Stop doing some try-hard airball threes because you want to show that you can make them and get better at it. Like, I don't get it.
I absolutely think this has to do with his family and him being an immigrant and him joining the NBA as as a literal outsider. And I think seeing Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, the way we treat these certain players, I think he's like, well, I want to be that level of great. And I think that is a completely valid thing to think as someone entering our country in this league. And instead of being like, well, I want to carve my own path, which would be also even more fun. But Giannis being kind of a straight man is okay with me because there has to be straight men for us to bristle against, right? Like there needs to be a straight line for us to veer from. And if he's going to establish that path, awesome. Milwaukee's on the map for another 2 or 3 years until he demands a trade, and we can talk about it.
I also think that guys who believe they're always doing the right thing in these kind of boomerfied scenarios will ultimately get burned by the same boomer hand.
Yeah, totally.
Always it happens. Because look at KD. You know, KD early on was juxtaposed as the boomer-centric alternative to LeBron James. LeBron went to Miami with a big announcement how they're going to win all these championships, the fanfare, the special on ESPN. What did KD do? Oh, he just announced in a tweet that he was re-upping in OKC. That's what you're supposed to do. You know?
And then
he goes and has a Bible in his backpack. They turned against him. The media started calling him like, what, Mr. Unreliable or something like that. And he got mad. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to go win titles. That'll shut everyone up. And people are like, bitch. Like, you can't buy into it because it's designed to burn you if you were like a young black millionaire. Like, you will always get burned unless you're like Tim Duncan.
It goes with the wind. Watching the media stories with Jimmy Butler kind of says it all. He's like, oh, he's awesome. He's underrated. What an interesting, loyal guy. Oh, he's a traitor. He's toxic. Oh, he's the best. I'm like, oh, it's how well he plays. It seems like culture is just dictated by how well he plays. Because if Durant wins a championship in Brooklyn, everyone's going to be like, is this the new way for all superstars to act?
Well, this falls under the same veil as accountability.
Yeah.
So if the Sixers had beaten the Raptors due to having a better backup center, maybe they win a championship. And Brett Brown is the coach forever, and we never talk about accountability. If the Clippers had a better center to defend Jokic, they win that series, beat the Lakers, beat the Heat. We're not talking about anything with like Paul George and accountability and Kawhi Leonard driving 2 hours to live in San Diego and all these other things that swirl around the Clippers. You know, you go back and look at team after team. There's this insatiable urge to ascribe morality to athletic failure. It's always something other than basketball. It's always wanting it more. It's working hard enough. It's teammates. It's always a story. It's never just, yeah, that sucked how that Kawhi jumper went in after hitting the rim 4 times. Wow, that was some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's another, right? It's the results bias thing. It's confirmation bias. It's just like, if you had that feeling before that Joel Embiid was soft or Kawhi Leonard's an actual winner, that works. And then if you didn't like Kawhi, it's like, well, last year didn't quite work out. Maybe he should be more loyal to Toronto. Maybe he could have won one in Toronto. But this is the joy of it, right? And I think this is the fun part of it. And when Charles Barkley rains down, be like, well, these guys should just stick to sports and let the media do their thing. I'm like, oh, no, let's stick to this theater, because you're taking us out of it now, talking about just being a jerk. Like, I think we're all okay with sticking to these arguments about basketball, but Barkley always sort of rains down with like these judgments, and I'm like, oh, dude, no, sir, this is an NBA, you know?
But I mean, this is the ecosystem of ideas that make it work. Mm-hmm. Because people who don't care that much about basketball, the X's and O's, need to be able to call LeBron Le Bitch. Like, they need that.
Pretty funny.
They need that. Oh, Le Bitch. Yeah, well, nice job, Le Bitch. Like, they need that. That's how they are brought into basketball. That's how they start paying attention. Oh, I root against Le Bitch.
Yeah.
You know? And we can sit here and be like, oh, as realists, it's not about the narrative. It's about the shots. It's about running a horn set in order to get an Iverson cut for a
Keith
back door.
Horn set? Yeah.
That's the one. But, you know, like, we can all get in where we fit in this. We can be the skeptics and the molders talking about...
Shout out to the
Would we be the
classic
molders
television.
or would we be the Scullys?
No, we're the Scullys here.
We're
The
the Scullys.
molders are the Le Bitch fans. Obviously.
Le bitches out there.
I want to Le Bitch.
But yeah, everyone can get out of it whatever they want to enjoy. And like, we can argue with each other, but we get our joy from being like, you idiots, why are you so emotional?
Yeah.
It's just, it was a jumper, it went in and missed it, no big deal. And like, yeah, that's because it was Le Bitch.
And I can absolutely relate to Daryl Morey, Kyrie Irving, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who all did 3 distinctly different things this offseason, but all kind of in reaction to not wanting to deal with the Le Bitches, right? Kyrie is just like, I don't want to talk to you guys because, like, you guys are annoying me and I care about different stuff, like making a rap record. A slow rap record sounds like J. Cole influence, but anyway, that was his response. And Giannis being like, oh, I love you guys, but I don't want to deal with this question. I want to deal with other questions like jokes and, winning games. Cool. Morey's just like, I don't want to answer questions about an egg casserole. I just want to like work in basketball again. And it is a reaction to a thing, and I love both parts of it. But let's not get it twisted that in order to exist, you have to like volley, right?
Don't get it twisted. Don't do it. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Yep.
No, I think you make a great point there, that the Le Bitches will never be satisfied.
Yeah.
But the beauty of the Le Bitch is their inconsistency.
Yeah, totally.
That they will turn on Giannis when they feel like it. Mm-hmm. Because really, all they care about is winning. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, it's not culture.
That's
It's
it.
winning. It's the empirical part.
No. And you have some players who are used as cudgels, like the Dame Lillards, but they're just parts of other arguments. Like the Seth Currys and the Dame Lillards, the Hardens. There's just a bunch of aesthetic things floating around. Mm-hmm. You know, they're all distractions. When it comes down to it, it's really just kind of winning.
Yeah,
There's nothing else
exactly.
really. But in that angle here, 538 came out with their rankings, and they have the Lakers at number 1 with the best chance of repeating. There was a GM poll that had the Lakers with an 81 chance of repeating, or excuse me, 81% of the NBA general managers said they thought the Lakers would win.
Weird.
Is there any alternative here in terms of a preseason prediction? Like, do we all just have to say Lakers?
Well, the previous champion is usually always the most probable to repeat, right? Because they had proved themselves to be the best. But when you look closer, it gets more complicated, like you said. I think Jokic was a big player in this bubble, and he eliminated the Lakers slayers, which were the Clippers. The Lakers are pretty good. I don't think they got worse. I think they maybe got better, but I'm not sure. I'm not a huge Wesley Matthews guy. Marc Gasol is a wonderful player, but he has taken, he's more into eating birra tacos now than holding down the paint.
I like you just including Spain with the taco community. I feel like it's only fair.
Listen, they're all potential hackers. It's all one hacker to me. So, and I think it's the safe Giannis kind of prediction to say the Lakers. No one's going to argue with you because they fucking won it last year. To me, it's the Clippers. The Clippers are the best team in the NBA, and they did nothing to disprove that to me.
The 538 rankings have the Celtics second, the Sixers third, the Clippers fourth, and the Bucks fifth. You go back a couple years ago, and you look at the Sixers with Simmons, Embiid, Jimmy Butler. You look at the Hamptons five, pre-injury to Durant and Clay. You look at that Raptors team with Lowry, Van Vliet, Siakam, Kawhi. To me, all those teams are better than anyone out of this list. Like, that was a rugged ass year. Those teams were freaking good.
Yeah. I agree. It doesn't feel the same that it does now, but it's a bit more top heavy. But the top, obviously, I think the Celtics have probably that is the one glaring 538 prediction that I thought was odd. And aside from the whole BMM thing, I think the Celtics are going to have trouble playing any top 10 player in any 7-game series because they don't have one. And Tatum is what people want to talk about, but it's Kemba Walker, and he's not on the level of any of these teams. And I think it's plausible to think the other three teams have an equal chance to win. A lot happens in a season, but if everything stays static and no one gets injured and everyone plays all the games, those four teams could win.
Oh, it's interesting that Miami doesn't rank that highly, and this is 538. I couldn't even tell you what their
model was,
what the special spices are, the Kentucky Fried Blend.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have thought that Miami would have, say, ranked higher than the Celtics. But, again, this is not them making judgment calls. This is them using a methodology. It's spitting numbers out, and they're putting them up.
It's based off the Carmelo ratings, I believe.
Raptor.
Oh, Raptor, right. They changed it from Carmelo to Raptor, right.
Yeah, they also have one that was called Draymond or something.
It's fun. It's fun.
So I'm not here saying, the Celtics, what do you mean? It's that's what their numbers said. They are doing their thing. And if you're doing these kind of proclamations, it's always good to have some controversial results because they're based on whatever your system is. Cool. But yeah, I don't look at any of these teams, Lakers included, really, and say these are great teams. I think the NBA has a lot of good teams. I think Denver's good.
Yeah.
I think Miami's good. I think Toronto's good.
I'm selling Miami a little bit. I think that's a little bit of recency bias. Mm-hmm. Another B word. A B phrase, because we saw them go to the finals and we saw Jimmy Butler and Big Face Coffee kind of take over quarantine, and we cared more about Jimmy Butler than we did the Lakers, aside from Lakers fans, obviously. And so we have that memory, but I think that's like a 4th, 5th, or 6th seed, right?
In the East, Yeah, I think they're probably around the 4 seed. I think the Bucks are going to have a good record again because they play their dork ball.
The Bucks, I
Like,
mean,
they're gonna do what they do.
that's still a good team.
Are they better or worse?
I think they're slightly better in the moment. I don't think the Drew trade helped them in the long run, but Drew Holiday's a nice player. Eric Bledsoe is as good as Drew Holiday, but
let's be
flopped
clear
in the
though.
playoffs.
This was a team that had the inside track on equaling or potentially besting the Golden State Warriors and Chicago Bulls' best record in NBA history before there was an injury to Giannis. And you're saying they got better. Weird that we're seeing them fifth on this list.
Not in terms of record better, because they got eliminated from the bubble. Record wise, they'll feast on relegation teams all day. But in a 7-game series, it's reasonable to say that like they kept all their pieces and they added Drew Holiday, who, whatever, debatably is better than Eric Bledsoe, because Bledsoe really had a tough time in very public moments. But they didn't make a huge wholesale upgrade. But that team is very, very good. And it's not unreasonable to think that they might make the conference finals.
I mean, also, as I just said, these are the numbers that they're coming up with. There's no reason to really sit here and say, the Bucks, they should be higher than fifth. Like, it is what it is. And they have the Warriors ranked 23rd on our list with a 16% chance of even making the playoffs.
That's by counting minutes for Wiggins and Weissman, right? Which is tough.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like, there's no reason to argue this stuff. It's more just sort of, oh, interesting. This was your method. Cool. Worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
But the Warriors on that do seem like an outlier. I clicked on the Warriors team page, and it looked like they were even still giving minutes to Klay Thompson. Curry was only playing 30 minutes a game. It kind of seemed like a mess in terms of how they calculated it.
They 536 just updated it. The Warriors are favored to win it all now that Jeremy Lin's going to be there.
Oh,
it's amazing. That makes sense. It checks out.
Ooh, thank God. I knew there was something awry.
Amazing.
Well, congratulations, Quo.
Thanks. I welcome all the casual racism back into my NBA feed. That was really nice to see this morning after Jeremy Lin was announced to be finalizing a deal with now the number 1 ranked team in the NBA, the Warriors.
I think Lin's been living a great life in China, playing ball, a hero.
He seems like a positive dude, yeah.
He does. Religious man. Man of deep conviction and belief.
Yeah, he had that very public performance. I call it performance not in a bad way, where he cried about how the NBA gave up on him. But he was speaking to his congregation, I believe, and he was, but we only took the beginning of that soundbite, and in the end he was like, but I feel good, and there's redemption and everything, and life isn't supposed to be easy. All these great
he was
things.
over there hamming it up for Jesus, is what you're saying.
As we do, as I ham it up for Twitter. I showered once this week. And I'm excited.
Some people talk about it. You live it.
That's right. Biohackers, come at me. I think Lin said after this season that he was looking to make a comeback in the NBA, and I was hoping after all the Knicks have been through with him, just to like invite him back for fan service for like a minimum contract. I thought that could have been a wonderful story to have him in a Knicks uniform again and looking the same, because Asians don't age until we look like Yoda, but it happens randomly. But he still looks young. He probably isn't an NBA starter at this point, but I do think he has value, and I do think his value is skewed because of racism. And you just look at the way people talk about him, and it's wild. It's just like, fuck has this guy been? Linsanity, LOL. And I'm like, this is neither here nor there, but I get it. Linsanity is a funny word, sort of like the Smith, and we're going after that. But
well, he's only 32, so he's certainly not.
But he depreciated quite a bit.
Oh, I agree. He had some knee injuries.
Yeah.
Like those take their toll. Yeah. But I'm saying he's not outside of the parameters of being even a fairly productive NBA player. It's not as if he's 36 and coming back just to sort of be a marketing boon to the Golden State Warriors. Like, he's 32. Like, he
can play.
He could still be a good player.
He went off in the China League, sort of like Ben Simmons. He was the Ben Simmons of the China League.
Like, so incredibly ethical.
Well, he was unethical, but incredibly good.
Well, he's really good, especially good for a league that's not the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, at least he dominated the China League, and he said it was tough because everyone had his number. All the players wanted to knock him down, and he had some gaudy games, and at least he was able to do that. So I was hoping. I mean, after the Knicks, the Warriors would probably be the most fun, right?
Yeah, that seems cool. Him next to Curry is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just into him being back in the NBA. I felt like he was someone that received undue criticism, and a lot of that was just backlash. A lot of it was racism. But he's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a great player. He's a quality backup point guard. And I don't think he should have to play in China unless he wants to. If he says, I love this shit and I just want to do this until I can't play anymore, like, go off.
Yeah.
But if he wants to be in the NBA, I think he's proven that he is a quality enough player that he should at least get that opportunity.
I agree. And, we always talk about the NBA being a private club. And there's certainly players that are good enough to be in the club, but it's a club and they make the rules. And to see the Warriors bring him back is like, I'm really excited. And I think there was one outlier stat of his when he was healthy that, why Morey was interested in him again after Linsanity was the time it took for him to receive the ball in the backcourt to when his team shot a valuable shot was like number 1 in the NBA. And I thought that was really cool and something that like is aside from a game winner against Toronto, he is like, it's so funny. I wanted to say he's a smart player, but I'm not even sure he's a smart player. I wanted to say that because, Asians are good at math, but he's a good enough player, and optically it's tough to see him dribble the ball off his foot. But he doesn't do that any more or less than any other guard.
I think that's true. He was also someone who was being asked to do a lot that may have been, in some cases, like, above his talent level. Mm-hmm. Like, because he had such an incredible start to say, all right, you're now our number 1 option. You're now going to do these things. What happened? Well, there's a reason I've been on the bench. There's a reason that I wasn't, a lottery pick and all these things. That, like, I'm good. I'm just not an NBA superstar. I can play. I can play in this league. And I think, water found its level with him eventually. Mm-hmm. He was a very legitimate NBA player who you could start if you were going to run a pick and roll centric offense like he did with the Nets before he blew out his knee. Mm-hmm. He's good in that system. Effective. He can shoot, he can draw fouls, he can kick the ball to the wings for threes. He's a mediocre defender. Like,
at best. But he's a very aggressive offensive player, which I love. He's aggressive as hell.
Drew tons and tons and tons of fouls.
Yeah.
Turns the ball over quite a bit, but a lot of them are because of his aggressiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So they would not become live ball turnovers that go back and become easy scores.
Yeah.
Totally solid player. And I don't think he got blackballed from the NBA or anything like that.
No.
But I think he was just sort of left outside, coming off of some really bad injuries. He was terrible with Toronto, even though he got that ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to see him back. I hope he can stick with Golden State and be a member of their rotation. That would be cool to me.
What a weird-ass team, man. Like, what a weird team. I was watching the preseason game last night, and, like, it's such a relief to see Curry on the court. I don't know how to describe it, but, he's played 2 games already. He's got those cornrows. He's bombing threes. He's doing his Curry-ish things. And I'm like, it is such a relief after all this bullshit of quarantine, just for this little thing in my personal life to see Curry out there. But after that, I don't quite recognize the team. Your boy, your favorite player, your guy.
Kelly Oubre?
Kelly. Wavy as hell, man.
Oh, so drippy.
So drippy. And you can see Curry, like, trying to pump up Oubre. I'm like, come on, you're our man now. And Oubre's like, right, wavy.
And they got your guy, what's his name? Andrew? Like, which makes me assume you would like him.
Wig Doggy?
Wiggins? Is that the guy I'm thinking of?
I am rooting for Andrew Wiggins. Is that my new thing?
Well, you root for all Andrews. You rooted for Andrew Yang. You root for Andrew Wiggins.
Andrew Jackson.
You wear nothing but Miami streetwear brand Andrew.
Shout out to Dizza, number one. Collaboration coming soon.
Miami Day One.
But I'm rooting for Wiggins for sure because, yo, man, he gets maligned so much. And, like, I don't know, optics, what we know about him in interviews, hearing him talk. He seems like a really nice guy. He has all the talent in the world, but he runs out of it. Like, none of this is his fault. Like, I always forgave Amari Stoudemire in New York. He was lost on defense, but he tried so hard. Tried everything, but he just didn't have the talent. And I feel that way about Wiggins. I'll always love the Warriors because I think that team that they gave us was like a real joy. And I hope we can get some remnants of that, but I don't think they should be ranked in the 20s. I think Curry alone puts them in the top 15.
Draymond definitely took a step back last year, but it's hard to say if that was just him taking a year off.
I hope he took a year off, yeah.
Oh, we're not playing this year. Okay, cool. Got it. So I'm just going to sit out a bunch and kind of fuck around. Deal.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. It was really nice to see Curry out there. I didn't watch the game in real time. I went and watched all of his baskets and shots on NBA.com, which
I've been doing that.
Gotten like fantastic now with, you don't even have to go to advanced box scores. All their box scores now are linkable with, you want to watch all of someone's assists, you want to watch all of someone's turnovers, all their shots, blocks. Just click one button, you can see them all. It's great. And
Emmanuel quickly QU. Yeah.
But watching some of Curry's ball handling, I'm just like, yeah, that's right. This is fucking tantalizing.
Yeah.
That one where he kind of threw like a behind the back, through his legs in traffic, and you're just like, I love that shit.
Yeah,
Thank you. Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of in my mind just remembered him as a guy taking like really long threes. And watching him, I'm like, it's also the sorcery with ball handling.
Yeah. I mean, the bubble, think about the bubble. No Curry, no Simmons. So we were subject to...
No Kyrie. No Kyrie.
Jokic,
no KD.
Beautiful player. Jokic is a beautiful player. But then we had to deal with, like, Kawhi, LeBron, AD. These are just, like, blunt objects. Doing, and also Giannis. You know, like, we were lacking some artistry in the bub.
I agree. Yeah. We had some great ball players. We needed great ball players. We just needed a little more magic.
I agree, and not the Orlando Magic, not Magic Johnson.
We had plenty of the Orlando Magic.
But yeah, NBA back, man. Preseason, quick. Any outlier thoughts that will blow people's minds?
My only outlier thought is really conventional, so it makes it not outlier. Is that it's so short. It's incredible that some teams will kind of just have 2 games and you're starting the regular season. I don't necessarily think it should be a different way considering the circumstances. Like the fewer games that you can force players to actually risk getting hurt in, risk corona, all that kind of shit, the better. But it is wild that it's like, all right, 2 games, because like games are really short.
Yeah, there's not enough minutes.
You know, you're Matisse Thybulle. You know, you got 10 minutes in game 1. You'll get 10 minutes in game 2. Maybe get 20 minutes. But you're like, all right, 30 minutes of basketball action, and I'm back on the floor in an NBA game. You're like, that's not a lot.
I hope they figure out the G League. I hope we can like figure out some fluid way to send rostered players to play games, you know, so we can see, and then everyone getting paid, and maybe us seeing it on TV more. But to me, I agree. The shortness feels palpable. Like as I'm waiting for Emmanuel quickly to check into the game, I'm like, there's no game left. They called a timeout. Like we can't see Maxey enough, you know. But I just think like I revert to like figure out your rosters. Just do it. Like. We could do this endlessly. The preseason could be 40 games and we won't know enough, you know? So let's just start rolling. And if you guys put out the wrong roster, fix it in the game, you know?
Let's fix it. Let's fix this game.
Rookies aren't going to get better playing preseason games. Rookies get better. It takes years, right?
Well, that's what we were talking about a few weeks ago. Where like, if you're a young player who did not play that much last season, you didn't really have much off season. Like, I think there are going to be some guys let's not rehash that whole thing, but there are going to be some guys who've been like inactive for 9 months. They might come back as different players, especially young guys.
Oh, Kevin Knox.
I think that's fun. I think that's fun to
back.
watch.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly Kevin Knox.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This game. This league.
Yeah, cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.